The war had been over for 3 cycles when Rusk Emberfang first witnessed a human cry. He stood in the observation deck of the diplomatic vessel, Talon's Edge, his scaled fingers drumming against the reinforced viewport as he watched the human delegation board. The Apex Confederation had spent decades cataloging humanity's weapons. Their chemical explosives, their kinetic accelerators, their tendency to weaponize mathematics itself. But nothing in the archives mentioned this. Kayla Thornhide noticed him staring and approached with the measured gait of someone accustomed to being watched. Her reputation preceded her, the human who had held the Krellis Gate for 72 hours, with nothing but a damaged mech suit and what her species called spite. "Commander Emberfang," she said, extending her hand in that peculiar human greeting. "I've read about your campaigns in the Outer Drift. Impressive work." Rusk clasped her hand briefly, careful of his claws. "Captain Thornhide, your defense of Krellis is studied in our war academies." He paused, his secondary eyelids flickering. "Though we still don't understand how you survived." She smiled, a strange baring of teeth that humans claimed indicated pleasure. "Stubbornness is a hell of a drug." The peace talks were tedious affairs, filled with territorial negotiations and trade agreements. Rusk found himself watching the humans, more than listening to the proceedings. They were paradoxical creatures, fragile enough that a single Talon strike could end them, yet they had fought the Apex Confederation to a standstill. 5 species, each evolved from apex predators of their respective worlds, and these soft-skinned mammals had forced them to the negotiating table. On the 3rd day, the incident occurred in the Habitat Wing. The Talon's Edge maintained a biological preserve, a section where each species could house specimens from their homeworlds, a reminder of what they fought to protect. Rusk was conducting his evening patrol when he heard the commotion. A mixture of human shouting and the distinctive whimpering of a wounded animal. He found Kayla Thornhide kneeling on the deck, her uniform torn and bloodied. Before her, a young Garox cub barely past its first molt lay trembling, its hind leg bent at an unnatural angle. The transport cage had malfunctioned during feeding time, and the cub had fallen nearly 3 meters. But what froze Rusk in place wasn't the injured cub or the blood on Kayla's hands where she'd caught the falling creature. It was the clear fluid streaming down her face. "Help me," she said, her voice breaking in a way he'd never heard from any sentient being. "Please. I don't know your species' physiology. I tried to catch him, but I wasn't fast enough." Rusk activated his emergency medical beacon, but he couldn't look away from her face. The liquid continued to flow from her eyes, not blood, not venom, but something else entirely. Her hands moved with desperate gentleness as she cradled the cub's head, whispering soft sounds that the translator couldn't parse. The medical team arrived within minutes. As they carefully extracted the cub from her arms, Kayla sat back against the bulkhead, those tears still falling. She wiped at them absently, leaving streaks across her dirt-smudged face. "He'll live," the medic reported. "Clean break. He'll be hunting again in 2 lunar cycles." Only then did Kayla's shoulders slump, a shuddering breath escaping her. "Thank God," she whispered. Rusk dismissed the medical team and sat beside her, his bulk making the human look even smaller by comparison. "That fluid from your eyes?" he said carefully. "We have nothing like it in our biological databases. Is it a weapon? A chemical defense? Or..." She laughed a wet, broken sound. "No. They're tears. Humans cry when we're sad, or scared, or overwhelmed." She looked at him, those strange eyes still glistening. "I thought I'd killed him. That baby. But it wasn't your offspring. It isn't even your species. Does that matter?" The question hung in the air between them. In Apex culture, such concern was reserved for one's own bloodline, perhaps one's pack or fleet. The idea of emotional distress over an unrelated creature, especially one from a former enemy species, was incomprehensible. "You injured yourself catching him," Rusk observed, noting the deep gash on her forearm where the cub's panic had caused it to lash out. He was scared. He didn't mean to. Kayla pressed her sleeve against the wound. He's just a baby. Rusk pulled up the security footage on his wrist display and watched the incident again. The cage malfunction, the cub falling, and Kayla, who had been walking past, launching herself forward without hesitation. She'd been fast enough to partially break the fall, but not enough to prevent the injury. And then she'd positioned herself between the frightened, thrashing cub and the responding security team, protecting it even as her own blood pooled on the deck. "I need to file a report about this," he said slowly, "for the Confederation's Human Behavioral Database. A report about me crying over a wounded animal?" She laughed again, more genuine this time. "That's going to be a strange document. You don't understand." Rusk stood, offering her his hand. She took it, and he pulled her to her feet with care. "We've cataloged your weapons, your tactics, your technologies. We know humans can fight, we learned that at great cost. But this..." He gestured at her tear-stained face, then at the blood on her torn uniform. "This, we didn't know. This, we didn't know. That we cry? That you care." He began walking her toward the medical bay. "That you'll throw yourself into harm's way for a creature that means nothing to you. That you'll weep for its pain. The Apex Confederation has 5 species, Captain Thornhide, and not one of us would have done what you did today." Kayla was quiet for a long moment. "Is that why you couldn't beat us? In the war?" Rusk considered his response carefully. The truth was, complex humans were innovative, stubborn, and surprisingly vicious when threatened. But watching Kayla cradle that cub, seeing her tears fall for another's pain. "We fought you because we thought you were like us," he said finally. "Apex predators, fighting for resources and territory. We couldn't understand why you wouldn't accept honorable defeat. Why you kept fighting past all logic and reason." He stopped at the medical bay entrance. "But you're not like us at all. You don't fight like predators defending territory. You fight like prey protecting their young, all of their young, apparently, regardless of species. And that makes us dangerous? That makes you terrifying." Rusk's crest flared in what his species considered a gesture of respect. "Any creature can learn to kill, Captain. But only humans weaponize compassion. Only humans cry for their enemies' children, then fight harder to ensure no more children have to suffer." The medical bay doors opened, and the human doctors inside immediately began fussing over Kayla's injuries. As she was led away, she looked back at Rusk. "Will this change things? Between our peoples?" Rusk thought of the injured cub, now resting comfortably in the preserve's medical unit. He thought of the tears on Kayla's face, and the blood she'd shed without hesitation for a creature that had every reason to be her enemy. "Yes," he said. "We always knew humans were warriors. Now we know you're something far more powerful." He touched his claws to his chest, in the apex salute. "You're guardians. And the Confederation has never encountered anything like that before." As the doors closed, Rusk returned to his quarters and began his report. In the section marked Threat Assessment, he wrote, "Humans possess emotional empathy extending beyond their species. They form protective attachments indiscriminately. They will sacrifice themselves for unrelated young. This trait, combined with their established combat capabilities, suggests humanity's greatest weapon is not their technology, but their capacity for tears and their willingness to shed blood, ensuring others need not." He marked the report as Priority 1 and sent it to High Command. The Apex Confederation had spent centuries believing that ruthlessness defined the apex of evolution. But perhaps they had been wrong. Perhaps the true apex predator wasn't the one who killed without mercy, but the one who wept for every death and fought to prevent the next one. In the habitat wing, a young Garax cub slept peacefully, its legs splinted and healing. And somewhere in the diplomatic vessel, a human woman carried bandages on her arm and dried tears on her face, proof that compassion could be as powerful as any weapon and far more revolutionary. The war was over. But understanding, Rusk realized, had only just begun.